Welcome CSC230 to ex9 using Google Fonts, and this will be very quick, and we're going to use the same website or web page that we've been working on from ex7 and ex8, and all we're going to do is apply some Google Fonts. Now the benefit of using Google Fonts is you don't have to rely on what people have on their computer. You can link to fonts from Google's directory of fonts from their API. And a couple things I wanted to point out before we even get into it is if you go to W3 Schools and you just go to Learn HTML to start, and if you go to the How-To section and you go all the way to the bottom. Now, by the way, let me just point out, this How-To section is incredible. There's so many things here that you could learn from this. We could spend months just going through some of these. So these are worth checking out, and we will look at some of these, especially when we work on buttons in a little bit. We'll have a button exercise from this, but there's all kinds of cool things. So when you ever need a slideshow, when you need something, drop-down menus, anything like that, this is a great place to go. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom here and look for Google Fonts. I think they have a Google section down here under Grid. Here's Google Fonts. Now what they point out here is that actually, it's good to know, there's 1,321 Google Fonts. There's 1,000 fonts. So if anybody uses Gravit and you're going through that list, you're going through 1,000 fonts. So there's a lot to go through. And for some reason, they have the whole list here, which I don't know why you need it because it's on the Google Font site, but they have the whole list here in alphabetical order. You could search through them. Now, one thing I want to point out is on the Try It section here, they use the method where you actually link to the Google API inside the HTML page with this link ref. Now that's fine to do that, but it's probably easier to link from your CSS. Now they don't go over having an external CSS here because everything they do in these try it yourself areas actually are through HTML. So even the CSS isn't in an external style sheet. It's actually here internally where they have it in the style tags of the HTML, which is fine. But we're going to do it in the CSS. But one thing to point out is it's a two-step process. There's basically a link to where the fonts are located on the Google site, on the API, and then you just apply it through your style sheet just like anything else. You list it as the first font choice, and typically you'll see Google Fonts with a quote around it. Even if there's a space in it or not, it'll have a single quote. I'm not sure why they do that. I've never seen a rule where you have to do that, but that's the way you usually see it. So you could just do that. It'll be an indication to you that you're using a Google font. So that's the way to use Google Fonts. And also, I'll close out of my tryout editor. If you go to CSS, they also have a section. If you go down to CSS Fonts, they don't show the CSS version either. They still show it through HTML, use the link ref, but they have a nice kind of whole section here about fonts, which I talk about in graphic design classes and complementing fonts and pairs of fonts. So they have all that stuff there, so it's worth checking out. But they also have about Google here, and it just says how to use Google Fonts. So it's the same kind of thing. They put a link in the HTML in the head tag, and then they apply the Google font through the style, which is inside the style tags, which we won't do that. We'll do it through our external CSS. But anyway, it's worth checking out. So if you have some questions about that, you can check out this here. But it's just a two-step process. You link to it and then you apply it. That's it. Now, the easiest thing is just going to be to go to the Google site and look through some fonts. So I'm going to do that in a second. So I'll keep this open, I guess. I'll go to Replit and I'll open up my Repel, the one we've been working on. And I'll go in my ex7. Now, I already did ex8, but I'll go in my ex7. I'll open it up. And I'll open up my CSS, I guess for now, because that's where we're going to be applying it. And this, I don't need to open right now, but I like to go to this tab here and just open it up in a new tab. And I'll go to ex7, which is also ex8, so that didn't change. That was just the responsiveness we did in ex8. And what we could do is maybe change some of these fonts. Now up here, I don't know if that matters. Maybe we want a nicer body font. Maybe we want a different heading font, whatever you want to do. The welcome font could be in something else. The company name could be in something. Whatever you want to do, you could use anything you want. Now, what I have as this basic sans serif isn't bad, but I can change that if I want, and we'll see what that looks like. Now, where do you go to see these? Well, we're going to go to Google Fonts. It's not hard to find. And we also do this in some of the other graphic design classes to go do this, because when we're using Gravit, we actually are using Google Fonts. So I'm going to go to Browse Google Fonts, and I'm going to use kind of a nice serif, like a slab serif. Now they don't have it broken down in slab serif, but I'm just going to go and find a slab serif. But anyway, I'm going to use Roboto Slab because if I click on the styles here, now it says variable, but if you go here, you'll see that you have all these styles, everything from light and all the way to real heavy. And they also use these numbers, which these numbers are used in CSS. So typically where you use bold and regular, you're going to use numbers with CSS. So you might want to note some of these numbers. So if you want something real bold, you might use like a 900 or 800. If you want something light, you might use a 100 or 200. And I think regular is like a 400. So let me go here and I'll select regular at 400. Maybe I want to use that, or maybe I want to use a lighter one. I'll select this style. And even if you don't select it, you can still, if you know the number, you can still use it. So I'm going to use 300 and I'll throw in 800. And when I go over here, view your selected families, you can see I have them selected. And what it shows you down here, it shows you the link version that goes into head of your HTML, or this import version, which I think is easier, where we're going to put in our CSS. So we're going to put right in our external CSS sheet. So I'm going to use this version that's right here. And you don't have to download anything, so just remember that. Now it also shows you how to use them. And all you do is you just put the name in a quote like that. If you're using Roboto, if you're using Roboto Slab. Now I'm not using Roboto, I'm not sure. I think I had that before, so let me remove all. So I only have Roboto Slab right now. But also if I want to go find a nice sans serif font, I can go over here. I'll just hit my back button and I'll go and search a sans serif. And Roboto is a nice sans serif. I had that before, but they actually have 12 styles and they have a light all the way through. So it has a nice sans serif as well. So maybe I'll select the light of Roboto, just Roboto, not the slab. And I could choose a regular possibly. And you don't want to select a ton of them. And then maybe I'll select like a 900 for a bold. I don't plan to use a lot of italic or anything like that, but I think you can still use an italic without selecting it here if you specified italic in the HTML. So what I have now is Roboto Slab, light and extra bold, and Roboto light, regular, and black. Now, just doing this doesn't mean anything. What you actually do is you highlight this. This is the important thing here. And if you do it through your HTML, you have to do this. We're going to do it through our import. And all that you have to do is just highlight this import. You don't need the style tag because remember, it's going in a CSS file. So style is only necessary if that's going in HTML. So you could highlight this and copy that. Now that just means these are the fonts that are going to be available, that you're linking to them. So I'm going to copy them and I'm going to go back here and I'll put it first, and even in front of my global reset here, and I'll just paste it. And there it is. There's my import. Those are the fonts that I'm using, and it's showing different weights. And like I said, you can add different weights in here. Once you see how this looks, like when they put two names like Roboto Slab, you can see it has a plus in the middle, and it has semicolons, and it has semicolons in between the different weights. So, you know, you could kind of follow how it's working there. But these are the fonts that I'm linking to that are going to be available. Now, to apply them, it's just a matter of going down here. So if I wanted to use, instead of Tahoma for my sans serif font that I use for everything, I can use Roboto. Now you could look at this and see how they do it here. They just put Roboto in a quote. So you don't have to copy it from there. You could just go here and I'll just put a single quote and put Roboto. And I'll put a quote and make sure you put the comma in there because these fonts have commas. So I'll use Roboto. And any other places I have fonts, maybe I could use Roboto Slab. So here I used Georgia. That was in the company name. But for now, I'll leave Georgia in there. But let me find my other headings, because I have other headings where I basically used a bold in here. I'm going to leave my headings at the top. But I think I used here's my main H1. Now, if I wanted to change that, and I wanted to I want to put in font family, and maybe I want to use a serif font. Now, I'll go up and find my serif font that I used for company name. It looked like this. So I'll just copy this. And I'll go back down. Now remember, this is for the column, the main H1. That will be for these things. These are the main H1s. So maybe I want to put them in Roboto Slab. So how do I do that? Well, I'll just go in here, do font family. I'll copy this whole thing. And instead of Georgia here, I'll just put Roboto Slab. I'll put a quote, put Roboto Slab, and put a space. If you have a space, you definitely have to have the quote. Now, I know I said something about the plus sign, but that's up in the link. You don't have a plus sign in there. So if I use Roboto Slab here, Let's just hit run and let's refresh this and just see what it looks like. And there it is. There's my Roboto slab. Now, I didn't necessarily put the 900, so let me make sure that I'm using the 900. Now, one thing you could do is put font weight if you're not sure if it's using the right one. So it looks like it's just using a standard bold. If you want it heavier, you can go here and put font weight, and I'll put a colon, and then you can see you get these numbers coming up. So I'm just going to choose font weight 900. Now, if I don't have 900, I think it'll go down to 800. Let's just see what happens here. I'll bring this over because I don't need that showing up, and I'll run and I'll refresh this. And it doesn't look any heavier. Let's make sure that I have 900 up here, unless it's just not as bold as I thought it was. So let's go up to the top, and I do have Roboto slab. Oh, I have 800. So maybe if it doesn't have 800, it's just defaulting to the regular bold. So let me just see if this changes, you know, just as we troubleshoot here. So I'll put 800 because I am linking to 800. So let me just see if this makes it a little bolder. If not, then that's as bold as it is. I guess that's the 900 that we're using, or the 800. So that's fine. And if I wanted to use something else in that, I could use, let's say this welcome I wanted to use in a Roboto slab. And where is that welcome thing? That's that big orange thing. Here's the welcome banner P. Here's the banner H1. And if I wanted to use that in the same font, I could go down here and I'll just copy this one because it already has Roboto slab in there. So you're just applying it is all you're doing. So I'll go up here and I'll put it in the banner H1. And I don't think it matters what order you do it in. And now I have Roboto slab up there, and I'm doing font weight 800. And let's see what that looks like. I'll hit run, I'll go up here, I'll refresh it. And now that's in Roboto slab, and I like that. And you could do these in something different. All our fonts now are in Roboto, I believe. And how do you know that? You can highlight this and you can right click and do inspect. And if I bring this up, it'll show you that you're using Roboto here. So it's using Roboto right now in there. So I just wanted to make sure that it's doing that. And it looks a little bit different than what we had before, although I think it looks fine. Actually, my buttons look a little bit smaller. They seem to get a little bit smaller from what I was using because the Verdana or Tahoma, I think Tahoma was the first one, that became a little bigger, although that's okay. I think that looks fine. And that's about it. You don't really have to do much else. Let's just try something. Maybe this section here, this is the P section in the banner. So if I wanted to put the banner P in something like Roboto slab, I'll highlight this. I guess I could highlight the whole thing. And now notice I'm not putting the weight. I don't want it to be bold. In fact, I want the weight to be light. So I'm going to put font weight, and I'll just check and see what font weight I have. I think I have the light like a 300. And there I have 300. And actually that's Roboto. I want Roboto slab 300. So there's 300 there. So I have them for both. I have the light for both. Now Roboto is the sans serif, slab is the slab serif. So I'll go back down to my banner section here. And for the paragraphs font weight, I'm just going to put 300. And you don't put anything else other than 300. So that's just saying the weight of the font. So I'll hit run, I'll go up here, and I'll refresh. And that looks okay. It's a little harder to see through the picture. So if I wanted to make it heavier, you know, I could go here and put 400. Let's just see if that changes. And it doesn't seem to change because I don't think I'm linked to that particular one. Let's see if I put 500. I mean, I just want to see if this changes here. Or if you have to find that exact weight and add it to your list. So let's just say if I went 800. I have 800 in there, but let's try 500 and see if that does anything. See, it doesn't make it heavier. Now, you could go in here and I'll go back to Roboto slab again. That was in a serif font. And it's one of the popular ones that they have up front. So there's Roboto slab. And let me just see what they have here. So they have 400. They do have 500. Now mine's not showing up. Now how would you add it to there? Now you could go down here and kind of look and see what they're doing. But I'll just kind of see what they're doing in here. I'll go up here. If I want to use 500, I'm going to go up to the top here. And I'm just following the process they're doing. They have the link here to the API. Then they have a question mark and it says family Roboto slab, and it has weight at 300, and then there's a semicolon, and it has 800. Let's see if I could do a semicolon 500. Or I put semicolon in the wrong place. I'll do semicolon 500 between those, because it looks like that's what that's doing. It's saying at, which is the weight, and then a number, then a semicolon and a number, semicolon and a number, and there's nothing after the weight. It just has and then it's going on to a different family. It looks like it's using the ampersand to kind of break that. So now I should be using 300 and 500. I mean, I could even put 400 if I want, and have accessibility to all those from Roboto slab. So we'll see if that affects it when we go to look at it. So now we have those available. So now if I go down to my banner P, there's 500. Let's just see, I'll hit run here. This should get thicker. And now it does. So now I have access to it. And let's say that's too thick, although that looks okay. Let's say if I wanted 400, this should get a little bit lighter. Let's see if that works. And it does. It's a little bit lighter. I like it like that. So that's all you have to do. You just have to follow the way it works there, and you could use any font you want. You could use Roboto slab light here in the body section. And you still have to target it correctly, because we have kind of everything targeted with sans serif, and then we're kind of picking out some serif ones to use for these slab ones, like for the welcome, for these headings and things like that. So you could target anything you want. So that's pretty much how it works. And you have access to, like I said, over 1,000 different fonts. And that's all you have to do for ex9 is just use those Google fonts. And basically you're just putting it in the top of your style sheet. You're using that at import, and you're getting it right from Google. And you can copy this initially, but then just follow how it works to get the different weights in there that you need, or different fonts. If you need any different fonts, you can just add them to here, copy it again. Whatever you need to do, just follow the process in here. You can see where it breaks between different fonts. It puts a and sign, and then it says family, and then it puts another one. So you could even kind of figure out how it goes if you wanted to put something else in there. So this is all you have to do for ex9. Just go into ex9 when you see it in Unit 12 and just say it's completed, and I'll check it out. It'll be in the same ex7 folder that you did all your CSS, all your HTML, and all your responsiveness for ex8, and just use this. So you want to make sure that you're seeing your new fonts here. Just try it for different things. Try it for a heading, try it for these headings, try it for your body copy. I tried something here. You could put it in a button, whatever you want to do. But just get used to using Google Fonts, because that keeps you from being limited to whatever people have on their computer. Then you have access to any fonts that you want. And websites look so much better because they're using nicer fonts from that library. And Google Fonts are kind of designed for the web, so they're made to be viewed on screen. So that's why they're really nice fonts to use. And they have lots of great variables and styles to be able to use with them. So it's a really nice addition to building web pages. So that's ex9 Google Fonts.